Welcome to Clear to Close LLC. I'm your host, Steve Lachance with Integrity Mortgage, and I'm here today with a good friend of mine and an awesome realtor from Keller Williams, Marty Norton. Marty, welcome.
Hey, it's good to be here, Steve.
Thanks.
Really like it.
So we started talking about doing this together. We want to inform consumers and talk to them about just the things that we do every day and all the really the trouble we're going through in this market right now. We find that we get a little nervous and go, well, how are we going to do this and stage the right production and make this all perfect for the customer to understand? And one of the things that Marty and I have learned is we do this more real world, no scripting, no. How many years have you been doing this?
24.
24. I've got you beat by 1 year.
Yes.
But after all these years collectively of doing this together, we really have seen just about everything that exists out there.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I don't think there's much.
A lot of good experiences, both with single-family houses, condos, multi-family houses, land, PUDs. I mean, you name it, we've had the experience. Mobile homes, modular homes. It's just been a number of many.
Modular homes, you're seeing a lot of call. There must be a lot more call for new construction right now.
Yeah, a lot of new calls. In fact, I think it's in about 2 weeks, there's going to be a CEU class on new construction.
Okay, and what's a CEU? Just like a continuing
education unit.
Got it.
And we have a local builder that's coming in and speaking to local brokers on the construction process.
Yeah.
Given the fact that the price of lumber and everything has increased, those are some of the questions that he's going to address, and should be a real interesting 3-hour class.
Yeah, I've been seeing some real interesting stuff with new construction because not only is it going to take a long time to even start, it's from a builder standpoint is how do you even put together a price when you don't know the cost of materials a year and a half from now.
Very
I've
true.
seen some clauses in there that are ridiculous. One was recently that said, we will let you know the final price within 14 days of closing. Like, can you imagine? It's a blank check.
Yeah, it is a blank check. In fact, just in the last year and a half, I've heard a lot of stories on new construction where we go under contract, sign the builder's contract, use the purchase and sale agreement, and then all of a sudden, 2 weeks later, the builder comes back and says, because of the increase in sheetrock, lumber, nails, every aspect of construction, we're going to have to raise the price by $25,000. That is not unusual. And then, a month later, they come back and say, prices of lumber are still going up, and we need to buy, framing materials and roofing.
That could be a problem obviously I'm on the finance side of the world, just looking at from a qualification standpoint, you have a certain price approved and you add $25,000 to it later. Yeah. That may or may not work. So you have to have really a contingency plan when you're buying something right now and you're going to build to know exactly what the plan is if the price goes up or if the rates go up or what could a year and a half out. That's a long time to wait.
It is a long time to wait. And also new buyers who are buying and having new homes constructed like this, their situation may change. If you go 6 months and the price of the new building goes up, these buyers may not be able to afford, may not be able to absorb all that extra, inflation.
Right.
So,
wow. Before the show, we were talking about the addendums that I'm seeing out there for appraisals that come up short, and just ways to negotiate and have the contract. Well, talk about that because I don't think I know what I'm talking about here. So there's an addendum out there that says you will pay as a buyer a difference if the appraisal comes up short.
Right. There is an addendum similar to that in zip forms. What I've been doing is I'm thinking it's page 3 or 4 of the contract. It says other conditions, and I will make a statement in that other conditions section, and it will relate to the appraisal gap. I will simply say the buyer will pay up to $20,000 if the appraisal comes in low. So, if the under contract is $320,000 and the appraisal comes in at $285,000, then the buyer will pay that extra or make up that extra $20,000 gap. So the new price of the contract is not $385 and it's not $420, it's $405.
I see. All right. There's got to be a lot of confusion on this.
That's why we make it short and simple. The statement doesn't get into the weeds. It just gets into a very direct.
Yeah, because I think that's one of the biggest concerns that I have when I see some of them that get too wordy. And not only is that confusing people, but it's also practicing law without a license too. Because you start getting real careful here, and the expectations is for your realtor to write this legal language in a contract. And there's really more standard guidance on this. And so keeping it somewhat generic and simple, I would imagine, is more appropriate.
Yeah.
But I've seen or heard there's a lot of confusion on how those work, and we're probably seeing less of those now.
I do try to keep it simple, and one of the motivating factors on the appraisal gap and to address an appraisal gap is if you know you're in a multiple offer situation and you know what your top line is to offer, what you need to offer, but you have to have an honest conversation with the buyer. You need to know whether they can afford a $20,000 hit to make up that gap.
Right.
It's very important.
I've been asked that before because I've had listing agents contact me and say, we need evidence that they have sufficient funds for that, which can get kind of sticky too, because sometimes the funds can be coming from multiple sources.
True.
So it does mean that a buyer is going to have to give some personal documentation to the other agent or to the sellers so they can prove, yes, we have the ability to pay this shortage.
Well, as a loan officer, do you ever have a conversation with the buyer about producing a bank statement, or is that the responsibility of the real estate broker?
Certainly would be the loan officer, of course.
Okay.
So we're going to gather bank statements, tax returns, W-2s, pay stubs, all the things that are necessary to verify all the information.
Good.
But you will find that sometimes all the proceeds are coming from perhaps a sale of a home,
right,
or they're coming from a liquidation of a 401k that we can prove the 401k exists, but we can't prove at that time that the liquidation's already taken place. So it can get difficult to just simply provide a bank statement when the funds may not necessarily be in that account. So often what I've seen in those cases is simply an email or a voicemail. Email. I think they want something in writing to prove that the loan officers reviewed their income, assets, liability, and credit information, and they do have sufficient funds for a shortage of an appraisal.
Okay. And that is a responsibility of the loan officer to
I would think so.
That information to the underwriter?
Well, typically, for underwriting purposes, yes. In the case where it's in a contract, I will always get written permission from a buyer to release that data out anyway, even though the contract says, yes, this is part of the contract. I don't sign that contract. So I want to make sure that a buyer knows that one of their particular personal documents will get released to the seller side.
And would that be a responsibility of a real estate broker to have that conversation with the buyer ahead of time?
Yeah, I would think so. More of a team effort, just so that buyers, open communication, so that if everyone on the team is talking for the buyers on their behalf, there's less stress, less communication issues.
Absolutely.
No question that they'll know exactly what's happening with their information.
Yeah.
But it's interesting to see how many people are actually putting in offers, going into it knowing that it's not going to appraise. You and I had one, did we not? We had one. It was that was over a year ago, I think.
It was about a year ago now.
In the midst of the pandemic.
Yes.
2021. And that was, correct me if I'm wrong, it was 102 over asking. Was that yours?
It wasn't quite that much. If I remember correctly, it was about $80,000 over the list price.
Yeah.
I believe the list price was in the, I believe it was $450.
Mid-40, yeah.
And the contract price was $530 or $520, somewhere in there.
Got it.
And nice house, really nice house, solidly built, needed a little work. And then we had the appraisal, and none of us thought the appraisal was going to come in that low.
Oh, okay. I'm thinking of even a different one. You're right. And then the appraisal came in even lower than expected.
Yeah, much lower. I remember the day that you called me and said, Marty, I've got bad news for you. I said, what is that? He said the appraisal was low.
Yep.
And, I know the buyers were disappointed, but, in the contract, it said that they would make up the appraisal gap and there would be no limit on what they were going to pay.
Dangerous.
They had the money.
Yep.
They just didn't They go.
I don't think anybody would expect it to be that far off. And now, again, you get into a whole other show that we can talk about is how appraisals work, because the accuracy of an appraisal is. We probably don't want to even get me started on that. I don't put a lot of faith in a lot of the reports that I see. But my say in it is also very slim too. Appraisals are ordered through a separate division,
right?
So that you and I have no direct contact. Realtors and loan officers and buyers and sellers don't have direct contact with the appraiser. So the purpose of that is to make sure that there's no coercion going on. But the reality is that means anybody could be that. Any licensed appraiser that's on the approved panel is the one that's going to do it. And we can't say, well, I don't want that appraiser. I want this appraiser. It doesn't work that way.
Well, not usually, whenever I have a listing and the listing goes under contract, no matter where it is and what the price is, I always meet the appraiser at the property the day that he or she does the appraisal.
That's big.
What I do in a lot of cases, and I can remember a VA mortgage, VA appraiser from Falmouth who, viewed a property and I knew we needed an exact close appraisal price. So what I did was I put together a complete package, including the table of contents, including all the documents that I received from the town, the competitive market analysis that I put together. I put together the HHE 200, all the deed, the property disclosure, everything. And I had it personalized to the appraiser's name with a table of contents. He said, "You're the first broker that's ever given me a report like this."
Right.
The listing broker, and provided a table of contents.
Right.
No other broker has ever done that.
You're just giving them the information they need. And there's so many times where I'm saying, gosh, if only the realtor was there. Mm-hmm. A lot of times listing agents, they let the appraiser just set it up in showing time. They go in, and showing time is just a place where you can schedule a visit to the property. Appraiser goes in, plugs in a schedule. They go and see the house and do their thing and leave. Never once having any communication with that listing agent, which is good. I mean, there's not supposed to be any coercion. But where's the opportunity now to be right there at the home, providing the information to the appraiser, saying, look, use this if you want or not, but here's the data that you're going to need. It's going to be very helpful.
Yes.
That's not only going to make their job easier, but it's going to get you a lot closer to proof that value is there.
Right. Face-to-face contact is so important. And I think that's what, in my 24 years of real estate, that's one of the things that we're starting to lose track of, the face-to-face contact.
Right.
I wasn't there to influence him. I was there to meet who the appraiser is, and I could hand him information that's going to make his job easier. It's all public information.
Right. This isn't information that we're using to coerce or anything like this. This is information we're using to make sure that they have quick access to that data.
And they can appreciate that too.
Yeah. And a lot of them I'm sure would love to have that extra little boost. Mm-hmm. And again, the problem what we have right now is the appraisal turn times are a lot larger because that's research the appraiser's got to do.
Exactly.
Again, we can't do the work for the appraiser, of course, because that's such an important piece of it. But I can't think of how many times that I've seen a situation where the appraiser was at a property, did their inspection, but came back and had not inspected the roof. They couldn't find the scuttle to go up into the attic. So there was no attic inspection or a good access point to the roof. Where had the listing agent been there or an agent been there to help, they could have said, oh, it's right over here. You'll never find it. Let me show you where that is.
And what's interesting is this property that I had cited earlier with the low appraisal, the listing broker did not show up for the appraisal date. And a lot of the brokers that I've been dealing with are not doing the little things, the little detailed things.
Yeah.
And, for me, I always have the conversation with the seller that I will be there during the appraisal. And if, when I represent the buyer, then obviously I can't be there.
It's one of my favorite things about you, Marty, is when you do represent the buyer, the nurturing that you do, it's not even that hand-holding sounds like such a childish little way to put it, but I got to tell you, when I'm buying something, I know this industry inside and out. I've been doing it forever, but when I'm buying and doing a flip, I see it very differently. I need that sense of reason for one thing, but at the same time also just to have that hand-holding saying, I know you know this, Steve, but I want to remind you of a couple things. And And that's what I love about you. Your customers, when we talk, they again, give me a little extra advertising here. But when your customers, and they talk about you, you can tell they're glowing. They really enjoy your service. So that's what makes it so fun for me too. Good. I don't get that. I can't say that every single time. Mm-hmm. And you'll find that on my shows, I'm not saying that every single time, because it is difficult right now to do it because everything's so virtual.
Right.
And having that hands-on, face-to-face, let me go with you to the property, that's huge.
Oh, it is. It's so important. It really is. And, I can't say enough about it. And it's fleeting. And I'm trying to capture what's left of the face-to-face contact.
So if a buyer wants to get a hold of you, how do they reach you?
They can give me a quick call at 207-408-6861, or they can simply, and that's a text line as well as a cell phone, or they can go to my email address, which is marty.norton@kw.com.
Awesome. And I know you're one of those people, you're just like me, the evenings and weekends and getting those texts, and you're just like me. We're always on.
Well, I know if I call you on Saturday night at 8:00 in the evening, you're going to put together that prequel letter. So
that's right.
Is appreciated.
Yeah, that's how we get it done. I mean, it's not a 9-to-5 business. So
you have to.
Well, thank you so much for coming on the show. I really
welcome.
appreciate that. We're going to have you back on again. And there's a whole bunch of other topics that you and we definitely need to discuss.
Yeah, absolutely.
You're my man for that stuff.
Thank you, Steve.
Thanks again.
for having me.
Thanks for joining us, guys. Marty Norton from Keller Williams Realty. Thanks again.